Hello everybody. Today we're taking the trip down the memory lane. I'm looking at my old receipts. Some of them are a couple years old, but still there is something to discover. Some of them are as old as 12 or 13 years. So it is definitely very interesting to look at that. It's interesting to see if there are any dream scenarios where you buy a card and several years later it is 10 times more expensive. I actually do have some of such stories. But as you will see, for the majority of cards, this is not the case. There are even some cards and even some old school cards that got a little bit cheaper in the future. And with the inflation that we can take into consideration, you may understand that these cards were not such a good investment. So it's always very interesting and also nostalgic to look at that. So a little bit about the background. Is going to be a long video. I've got a lot of orders, as you can see here, and I want to share some story with you as well. So the preface to that is that I was still a very young student when this happened. I only started to have my own credit card, and as you know, I live in Russia. This is not something that we typically had. None of my friends had a credit card back then, and my parents did not have these either. So this was still very, very new to us. It was still something that was not actually included into our mindset. Using credit cards, paying online, there were tons of security concerns, and also a lot of websites did not accept Russian credit cards. They did not want to work with the Russian billing, and even if they did work, then there would be some issues with for instance, we can talk about the Russian post, because people did not usually trust it for a good reason. It was atrocious back in those days. So even if you did pay for your order and the billing process went smoothly, you would be afraid that your shipments would be lost. And this actually was the case quite a lot of times with me, not with magic, but with some other things prior to that. So I approached this whole thing very cautiously, but still I did go ahead. Actually, it is important to know that, you know, just like Mt. Gox, yes, this famous Bitcoin exchange was originally used for Magic the Gathering, so was my credit card. I actually did purchase my own credit card to play Magic Online. So this was in 2005. Yeah, good times. So anyway, as you can see here, I've got this order. The very first order I made was with MTG Fanatic, which is no longer online. I believe that it doesn't even exist. MTG Fanatic. Yes, it's permanently closed. If we go to the website, yeah, it's gone. So the second website I ordered from, and I actually stayed with them for many years. I'm not going to talk about every order I made with them, but the orders that are mainly focused on old school cards. So here we have got this, and if you look at it, the first thing you will immediately see is that some junk, such as Rampant Growth. It's not a junky card. Here the edition is not displayed, but let me tell you that it was from Mirage or something like that, so it's not a really big card. And this was before ADH actually was a thing, and there was no demand for this card. Of course, it was not played in Legacy, which was the only format where it was legal, right? Legacy and Vintage. So, as you can see, the lowest price for the cards with Troll and Toad was 49 cents. And the rationale that they provided is that the majority of costs are the sorting costs. And if you have ever sorted a huge collection that you bought, you understand how it works. You understand why bulk is so cheap and while individual singles are so expensive. So 49 cents, this was the cheapest you could pay for a card. And you know, back then it seemed quite expensive to me, but at the same time I knew that I was not able to buy these cards at all. You know the story, I've talked about it many times, that Magic was not introduced here in Russia officially until the very late 90s. So we couldn't buy these cards, we didn't have them from naturally cracking the packs, we could only import them. So speaking about the earlier cards, yeah, they were very difficult to acquire. Then one more. Yeah, I'm actually ashamed. I'm ashamed of ordering such janky cards as Cross and Colossus. We also had, well, Grozoth from Ravnica, and we had this combo with Dream Hall, so I'm not going to talk about it. But the thing is that Howling Mine from the 4th edition cost $3, which is not negligible. It is still, of course, less expensive than what you would have today. If we just look it up, Howling Mine from the 4th edition. You know what, let's actually go ahead and do this. Okay. Yep, like that. So today Howling Mine, yeah, it is more expensive, but it's not tremendously more expensive, as you can see. It is it doubled. But if you take into consideration inflation, opportunity cost, and such, not such a great investment. An even more interesting case is Black Vise. Again, I was interested in the 4th edition back then, because 4th edition is the one that actually was more nostalgic for me. Because of the Chandler game, I knew that 4th edition was the edition that was used there. And Black Vise, actually, this was before that card was unrestricted. I must emphasize that. I mean unbanned, because you know that for some time Black Vise was actually banned in Legacy, right? And when it was unbanned, people were happy about it, but still it didn't prove to be a very viable card. But Black Vise was still banned, and it was 99 cents per card. And today, as you can see, that would be the cost of the 3rd edition. Then it went up after it was unbanned, but in 2008 it was still a banned card, and 4th edition can be had for nothing today, as you see. There was also Wild Growth, and I believe this was unlimited Wild Growth. Let's take a look at it for the pure sake of interest. I believe that Wild Growth is not very expensive, even in unlimited. Yeah, it's not too expensive. Currently, of course, it's not a very good way to look at that. I use Card Kingdom, not Troll and Toad, yeah, because Troll and Toad do not have a lot of cards in stock, but neither does Card Kingdom today, so you get the point. And yes, Dream Halls. As I said, I wanted to make a Dream Halls deck, and Dream Halls again was a banned card back then. As you see, I liked getting banned cards because I played kitchen table Magic with my wife, and we just were doing some fun things, and we didn't care whether the cards were restricted or not. So yeah, that would have been a very, very good investment. What are we talking about? 20 times, right? And this was a near mint copy, and the near mint copy would go for even more. I don't have this card anymore. I sold a lot of these actually, because remember, as I said, back then nobody played old school Magic, nobody even knew that it was a thing here in Russia. I was just getting these cards because I knew that they existed, they were nostalgic for me. Next one is, let's discuss this, another order from quite old days. Also 2008, 2009, I believe, we had Armageddon, which is not much cheaper than what we have it for today. I should check the price of Armageddon, but it was always a card that people thought was very good. It is, and again, I don't remember whether I did the 3rd edition or the 4th edition. You know, sometimes I didn't care, sometimes I chose the 3rd edition, sometimes the 4th edition, but I didn't have this idea that 4th edition is not proper old school to me. And to a lot of people I know nowadays, 5th edition, the 4th edition, and the 3rd edition, especially the 3rd and the 4th, are pretty much the same things, but we know that they aren't. We know that they aren't for sure. The interesting thing here is Ivory Tower. I did get Ivory Towers from the 3rd edition, and I did get the Ivory Towers from oh wait, maybe I'm actually wrong, but this is certainly not Antiquities. I have only one copy from Antiquities, and I know that I did not sell it because these copies I actually sold. So yeah, I don't remember which edition was that. This was probably the 3rd edition, and I did buy one copy of the Antiquities, and it was actually a really bad copy. And look, I bought MTG Islands for 3 cents. And you know, it's very interesting that in these MTG Islands for 3 cents, I got Revised Islands for 3 cents. I don't know why is that. Maybe nobody wanted these. I actually always loved Revised Islands, and I did get them like this. So this was really impressive. Next, what have we got? Mishra's Factory. This is definitely the 4th edition, and I just want to point this out. Again, we're talking about 2008, 2009. Mishra's Factory, 4th edition today. Even though it is a playable card, just think about it. It is a playable card. It is a staple. People love it. But it was more expensive than it is now. It is, well, exactly the same if you look at the near mint copy. So that's amazing. And now a card that breaks my heart. When I look at it, you know, it's just devastating. Look, $5 for a near mint Sarah Sanctum. It's probably the worst decision that I made. Sarah Sanctum is a card that I actually sold a year later after I bought it. So what are we looking at? $250 instead of $5. So that would be what kind of investment? Are we looking at 25 times? No, wait, 50 times. 50 times the investment. This is so painful to look at. But then again, I did not actually play this card. I got it, but then I did not really have an Enchantress deck, and I just didn't do anything with it. And this was before the red legendary rule was changed, and it was before the reserved list hype. You know how it worked. These cards, Clone, White Knight, Pendelhaven, went up a little bit, but not that dramatically. So this was my order from 2009, I believe, because you see a Ravnica already there. Yeah, probably 2009. Well, but we know that Ravnica came out in 2007, so... Oh wait, it didn't. It came out in 2005. Okay, I'm mixing everything up. Now, one more Trillium Toad. So this is where we're talking. They're not in the chronological order. They are in the chronological order inside the same site, but they're not in the chronological order. Oh, sorry, just checking whether it's working or not. They are not in the chronological order in all of these tabs. So, if we look at this is the most important order for me, I probably think ever, because this is exactly where I decided to go old school. I played Merfolk a little bit. I just decided to make an old school deck. I knew that old school was a thing already in 2017, and I played kitchen table Magic with my friends. We played some modern, we played some not very serious legacy, again mostly kitchen table Magic, and I understood that yes, I can actually make a deck and play with people online, play with people who are passionate about old school. And this is when I went all in. I sold a lot of things. I buy listed a lot of my legacy and modern staples. I have told you this story already, but this is where you can see I bought a ton of old school Magic cards. So Sinkhole description was poor, interesting as a description. So this Sinkhole is from Unlimited. I think that we're looking at about triple the cost. Yeah, about that, depending on the condition. This one is poor, so it's not a tremendous return on that. Again, maybe you're currently not able to find it for this price. I'm not using eBay here, it's just easier to do like that. But let's go through these. You had Savannah Lines, a little bit undercosted regrowth. What does regrowth look like nowadays? Let's take a look at it. And you see, nothing, no change, no change. Even after all of this old school craze and so on and so forth, people do not want a revised regrowth. I paid more for it than I would pay now. And this is amazing with all the inflation and everything that's happening. Silly me bought Wishwas Factory again, actually cheaper, because the cards that you saw there, I lost, not really lost, I sold a lot of them. In 2009 I actually quit Magic, and I quit Magic for about 6 years. So this is where I came back. Let's see, it's always interesting to look at some of the older sets. So you see a ton of revised stuff, you see the 4th edition, and it didn't move that much. This is what is interesting, that cheaper cards usually stay cheap, most of them, but more expensive cards have a high chance of moving up. I believe this is the thing of supply and demand, and people very often do not want reprints, and even if they do want them, the supply is just tremendous. And look, Land's Edge is a popular card, and the Chronicles reprint made it very cheap, so even though it's a card that many people want, it is still not expensive at all. We're not going to go through each of these things, there are so many of them. I don't want to waste all your time on that, but I want you to take a look at this Spirit Link. As you can see, even then I was getting some Italian cards, not for the cost reasons actually. I had to buy it because there was no other copy available, and I just said okay, so let's buy the Italian copy, and I bought it for 79 cents, which is a very good deal. So Italian Legends. I wasn't a fan of buying Italian Legends when I could buy, let's say, the 4th edition white-boarded copy. And even today, I wouldn't do that. I would typically prefer the English card, but if you have got a very expensive Legends cards in English and a very expensive, but less expensive steel card in Italian, I would go with Italian. Okay, let's random pack of standard size sleeves. Look at me, what was I doing? Okay, yeah, I still did not really quit other forms of Magic entirely. So I bought, for example, this sweet Rebel. I wanted to have an old foil Rebel deck. I actually did have it when I still had some modern cards in it. Now I have a strictly pre-modern deck, so this is not the case. And now Lin CV would cost, you know, a tremendous. So again, cheaper versions typically do not move, or maybe if they do not stay flat, they will actually decline a little bit, but more expensive cards will definitely go up, and they will go much, much higher. So Lin CV, I believe, is a reserved list. Oh no, wait, because in Nemesis we didn't have reserved lists anymore, did we? So no, it is not. It is not a reserved list card, of course, but still, it's not a card that they are likely to reprint. And of course, everybody wants this commander in foil. So, you know, I was a little bit hesitant, but still I kind of understood that. I already could see this trend that more expensive cards are getting more expensive, right? And cheaper cards typically stay the same, right? They would typically stay flat. So yeah, Flying Man, because it's very wrong to judge cards by their age, because as you know, the 3rd edition 94 and Legends is also 94, but if you look at the dynamics of those prices, you know how different it is. So today Flying Man can be had, you know, the price I paid for Flying Man is MP, that's it doubled. It's again not very, very impressive, I would say. Sylvan Library, this was the Italian copy from Legends. Let's not even talk about how expensive it is now. Is there anything else? Yeah, okay, so there of course this black swan events, these unforeseen events, such as the banning in modern Magic of these cards in officially sanctioned formats such as Crusade, and there are some cards that followed the price trend, and Army of Hell is another card that went up really dramatically. So these things of course you couldn't expect. But there are some more interesting things regarding this which we'll take a look at. And now, again, these are all reprints, chronicles and such. It was always about getting the biggest card pool. Very rarely did I go for the pimp cards. I did, as you see, but not always. Maybe this would have been a good return on my investment once again, but out of these cards, I didn't sell anything, and I'm not planning to sell anything. You have seen my collection videos. There is one more coming. The definite collection video, actually. I hope that I receive a couple of parcels I'm waiting for in about a month or so, and then I will make the definitive collection video, because I'm officially stopping collecting old school Magic, because I have reached not my final goal of having every single card, but there are some things that I'm not going to touch, because even if I do acquire them, such as the Bazaar of Baghdad, Mishra's Factory, Tabernacle, if I ever want to sell these, I wouldn't risk selling them, and it's not easy here in Russia to deal with huge sums of money. If you simply get a huge payment and get it transferred to the bank, you may very easily be locked out of your bank account because of that. So I'm simply not going to risk it, because I still view these as the cards that I really love and I wouldn't mind keeping forever. But if need be, I might be able to sell some of these, and Bazaar, or let's say Tabernacle, is not something that I want to be stuck with forever, especially with the prices we've got now. Let's take a look at some other cards. Again, more interested in the big stuff. So yeah, okay, this is what I wanted to talk about. Stone Throwing Devils. Stone Throwing Devils, we had them for about $3. You want to know how much they would be worth now? Of course, you cannot buy them legally, so to say. You will have to use eBay. And Stone Throwing Devils will cost you, as you can see, around $20 now. And that's very interesting, because this is one of the cards that I had an excess of. I had too many of them, and one extra copy of Stone Throwing Devils was a card that I gave as a prize to the second place in my birthday tournament that I held in 2018, and this was before the spike, so the person who got it might actually be sitting on the bigger money than the person who got the first prize, which was a modern foil. Okay, what else have we got? Looking for some big cards. Well, alright, Mana Flare, for instance. Mana Flare was the revised copy that I acquired. And today this would have been very good, so look, 10 times. So that's very nice. Again, you don't know which of these would spike. Rares typically, but not all rares, as we saw. So not easy to actually see. Winds of Change. When I bought that, I was actually really angry, because I said to myself, look, this is a bit overpriced. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that I have to pay $3 for such a card. I was actually furious. And that is interesting, because, well, it's much more expensive now. Or is it? How much would Winds of Change? Again, Card Kingdom doesn't sell Italian cards, but if we just look at the cheapest copy here, the 4th edition. Yeah. So, okay, now I remember. This was my complaint, is that Troll and Toad were out, and I still didn't really think about shopping around back then. I didn't think about whether I should go and look in some other store for these cards. So I typically just said, okay, I'm going to the cheapest one, and the 4th edition. Oh, there is a beautiful Portal card. I do believe that it is more beautiful than the old school, sorry, because as much as I love old school, and I typically believe that old school art is always better than the newer one. Yeah, there is some exception to that. But still, I was unhappy that I couldn't buy 4th edition copy and I had to buy the Italian one, even though black bordered, still. As you can see, I already started getting into collector's edition, as well as Italian Legends as a budget alternative, and sometimes just because the white bordered English version was not available, started to get into collector's edition. And when I first saw collector's edition in I believe 2015, I have to make a separate video on collector's edition, its story, the love and hate relationship of collector's edition and the community. It's truly a special set that I myself have a very difficult history with, but I decided to go for it and buy Blaze of Glory collector's edition. Of course, I was sure that I would buy some power cards from collector's edition, but you know, Blaze of Glory, it felt weird. But on the other hand, it felt even stranger to buy an unlimited card, which was already, I believe, above $20 or $10 still. I didn't want to do that. Yeah, today, as you can see, Blaze of Glory can only be had for this kind of money, which is much more than what I paid. Jade Statue is a great example. As you can see, it doesn't say collectors, so we can only assume, looking at this list, that this was the unlimited copy, because there is no other way. So if we look at Jade Statue, what we can see here is that it is $9 and also quite difficult to find. You know, I'm so obsessed with these is that I started getting as many as possible. I initially bought one, so for the longest time this was the only copy that I had, but then I decided to buy a couple more, and then I said, okay, I need even more, and you know, I only needed the playset, but then I thought that I did not have it. So anyway, we're looking at 10% increase, something about that. Hercules Recall, I believe, is another card that got much more expensive, but we have to check. And actually it didn't. Again, back then I already knew that I wouldn't go for the 3rd edition copy, so I didn't use that. But wow, look at this. That's actually very interesting, and I noticed this several times, that the 4th edition is cheaper than the 5th edition. And why is it so? Well, I have this theory according to which the 5th edition, as you know, is the biggest set ever in terms of numbers of cards that can be found in Magic sets. And the 5th edition rares, each individual rare, is more difficult to pull from the back than the others. Of course, when they price their cards, they don't price them based on the comparison between the 4th edition and the 5th edition. This is not what they do, but it's just interesting that we've got this interesting situation. And the colors, I believe that the 4th edition colors are actually better than the 5th edition. A lot of people hate the 3rd edition colors, and I'm not going to comment on that. I do love revised, alright, especially the white pale cards. In this one I would probably go for the 4th edition, and the original antiquities. I believe that it might be not a perfect scan actually, because here the card looks a little bit high contrast. I'm not sure, but anyway, look, this abomination is actually worth more than Hercules Recall. How can they do that? How can they not appreciate this beautiful art? I hate them. Anyway, let's see what else was there. I had Armageddon. We have talked about Armageddon already. Underworld Dreams, the Italian one. A terrible story happened with me. I bought this playset of Underworld Dreams, as you can see, and then I actually lost it. This is only the second time that I lost any cards. The first card is the Pithing Needle, back when it was still expensive and not couple of dollars, which it is now, or maybe even less, who knows, who cares. These cards don't exist. Magic stopped for me after 2003, after they introduced the new frame. This is what I'm saying now, of course. Back then I didn't have this opinion, but I still hated the ugly new frame. So Underworld Dreams I actually put somewhere and I still don't know where they are, and it would be really cool if I find them, because I actually have 2 playsets, but one of them is, I don't know, maybe behind the fridge or somewhere else, I'm not sure. So any more interesting cards to talk about? Okay, to speed this up a little bit, let's focus on the more expensive cards. Let's not talk about the cheaper stuff. Let's talk about the cards that are, well, a little bit more expensive. So if we talk about City of Brass Chronicles, I still think that it's too cheap. I still think that it is too cheap, even though it's Chronicles, a set that many people hate. I still think that this is the only affordable original art copy, and if you can still get it, go for it, go ahead. If you want this card, I would strongly recommend doing this. I have 2 playsets. The only cards that I have more of a playset of is Mishra's Factory, and another one is City of Brass, because I will often have decks that want both of these cards in a playset at the same time. I was actually thinking about getting one more playset, but then I said to myself, no, that's probably enough. So yeah, the foil from the Junior series is of course beautiful. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. But in Old School we don't really like foils, do we? So the next order, about the same time. This is much shorter. I did buy Manavolt. From Revised. They're checking my browser, alright. I'm not using VPN, I don't know what the thing is here. So yeah, lightly played. This would be, I believe, here. Like, excellent. And yeah, that's good. So, Word of Command, a card that many people collect, but not many people play. I'm actually currently in the making of a deck that is based on this card. It is incredibly clumsy. The art is, you either love it or hate it. I personally love it. So, Icy Manipulator. Icy Manipulator is so expensive. It is a card that is iconic. The art is beautiful. And look, this junk, nobody wants it. This is how to do justice to these cards. Not like with Hercules Recall. How can they not appreciate the beautiful Hercules Recall? I don't know. But unlimited copy costs quite a lot. This one is so beautiful, such a beautiful reprint, but foil. And look, we're talking about 5 times. Again, this is mid 2017, before the great cryptocurrency spike. I bought most of these things in July and August 2017. Concordant Crossroads from Chronicles. I believe they not really spiked, but just rose slightly. Not slightly, okay. Alright, there we have got some more Mana Vault. And a couple of Ice Manipulators from Ice Age, actually. And look, Troll and Toad actually had and still has quite expensive shipping. Whereas, let's say, Card Kingdom to ship to Russia is free. Or sometimes it actually was free until the coronavirus crisis last year. And last year you could still have free shipping. Today they started using some European service, so yeah, it's a little bit you still have to pay a little bit, but it's about $10. So I guess that this is because these might be insuring them, these companies, some of them. It's really not that obvious. Okay, one more order from Troll and Toad that I made. As you can see, yes, silly me, lost my Underworld Dreams and had to buy them again. And what else was there? So, okay, as you see, as I progressed, this is the way that I started to build up my collection. I went for staples at first, but then I was getting some more and more obscure cards, more and more expensive cards, and this is the usual direction that I moved in. For example, what did I buy? Okay, so I bought Leviathan. Okay, I bought Leviathan. This was a Leviathan from the Dark. Talking about the proper Leviathan. And Leviathan from the Dark, it is not that much more expensive. $3, $4. Yes, okay, it's probably not such a good example. Season of the Witch. Season of the Witch. A really obscure card from the Dark. Reserved list, of course. Did go up. Did go up. Stone Calendar. I jumped on the Stone Calendar bandwagon, which I somehow regret. It is one of those cards that I sometimes think of selling. I sometimes say to myself, okay, I've got a playset. I do have the card for my collection, so I can admire the art. And no arguing here. Emmy Weber's art, symbolic and mysterious, is always amazing. But it's a card that is absolutely useful, isn't it? Absolutely useless, I mean, sorry. But you get the idea. It's a terrible card. But Stone Calendar, I don't know. I must be thinking of selling it in the future. Maybe if it goes up even more. I'm, absolutely sure that there is no way I'm going to use it in a deck that I build in the future. So yes, here you can see Lady Caleria, translation from Italian into English, okay? But the reason why I started to buy these is that I wanted to get legends. I always felt that they are somehow special, and of course they are. Lady Caleria is a useless card, you remember it. Huge casting cost, deals damage to attacking and blocking creature. But yeah. So this is the direction I was going in. I did buy me some Urza's cards, Urza's Mitre. Again, so this is where I was starting to get into collecting, as you can see. I bought some useless cards that was not very cheap. I did buy, for example, 3 Mountain Yeti. I said, why not? So is there a big difference between 20 and 60 cents? No, of course there isn't. So I went ahead and bought some Primordial Ooze. Also a playset, why not? So this was my rationale, that if a card is cheap, let's buy 2, 3, 4, sometimes 7 copies. 4, especially if it is a cheap card that can be played early. So it's one of the cards that if you actually decide to use it, you might want to have it early. So that was my rationale for that. Natural Selection. Natural Selection is an amazing card. I often talk about it. I still have a couple of copies waiting in the mail. As you know, the story of this card is truly unusual. This was one of the cards, as far as I heard, as far as I understand, that was the buyout target. It was one of those buyout target cards, even back then, and the truth is that this card is absolutely useless. As you can see, the effect is really negligible. It is not played anywhere. It's not played in Old School. It's not played in Commander. There are much better alternatives. It's just weird that it is a green card. I agree with it, but then again you have much better alternatives. And this card was even then very difficult to find. So I had to go for the collector's edition copy, and I noticed this kind of discrepancy. And rumor has it that there are some collectors who are absolutely crazy about this particular card, about this Birdman by Mark Poole, and I don't know. It does have some appeal to me. I'm thinking of playing it in a Field of Dreams deck, and so far I can say that it's very successful, my playtesting. Yeah, so I was also getting Two-Headed Giant of Forest. Wow, that's actually quite expensive. Look how much I paid for that. For the longest time, this card was not very expensive. in unlimited. Now of course it is. Now of course it is. But we're still only looking at, so that's MP somewhere around here. So we're looking at 3 times return, but this card was always expensive, even though not playable. And okay, this is the best example here. Sword of the Ages, Italian. And I'm not sure how much it costs currently, but I know for a fact that this is the card that people bought out, but then it returned to the original level. So just in case, I will look it up. And okay, what are we looking at? 34, 30, something like this. The Italian Legends Bite now. Okay, right. So you see, even now it is cheaper than it was in the past. So I bought it when it spiked, and that's a pity. That's a pity that I did. Okay, next we have got Star City Games. I was never a fan of Star City Games. Here in Russia, people always price their cards based on Star City Games times 75%, something like that. So it depends. It actually depends on the exchange rate of the dollar to the Russian ruble, and typically they believe that this is the fair value of a card, which I don't agree with at all, because a lot of cards are too expensive on Star City Games. I never liked this website. I never liked the user experience, and the only reason why I actually use Star City Games is that Star City Games was the website that was buying Russian cards, and I had quite a lot of these from my modern collection. So I actually buy listed these cards to them, and not only did they buy Russian cards, they also paid a premium for that. They paid a premium for Korean and Russian, and also Japanese sometimes. But actually for Russian you had the biggest premium, which was very, very nice for my purpose. And I'm not talking about foils, by the way. I'm talking about regular cards in Russian, which is not the case at all nowadays. People don't want them that much, especially the non-foils. So what have we got here? Here at least we can see the edition, which is really nice. And let's take a look at some of the more expensive cards. Okay, so yeah, I got duels. I got duels here, heavily played. If you look at them, the condition is actually nice. They are not really damaged or anything. If you look at the Savannas that I've got. And today Savannah, you know, even in the worst condition, this is almost the price that I paid for a playset. Now you can have maybe 1 or 1.5 copies for that. Scrubland, similar story. I'm interested, again, it's always tempting to look at the least successful examples, and I believe that Animate Dead from the 4th edition might have the same price today. Oh no, I'm actually wrong. Animate Dead is a more popular card, so it's not that cheap, not that cheap. Okay, let's go over some more expensive things. A Strip Mine, 4th edition. Now that is interesting. Strip Mine from the 4th edition. Might not be the best investment, but still we're looking at about the same price Blade, so okay. But again, no real increase. So this order was made by me also in 2017, and some buyouts already started to happen. Strip Mine, the Tower Strip Mine, my favorite Strip Mine, was already a thing. And if you look at it, where is the Tower one? Here it is. And look, I thought that I was actually very lucky to have bought this, because afterwards, if you look at the price history, you will see that this card spiked to some unbelievable levels. But in the retrospective, even with all buyouts that are going on, this is not such a great investment. because it's also played copy, so it's not something that we should be amazed at. Underground Sea. Now, with Underground Sea, it's interesting that I paid quite a lot of money for that. As you can see, it's played, it's heavily played. These are not perfect copies, but I always knew that Underground Sea is the most desired dual. So for me, I knew that the black and blue duals go for the highest. And nowadays, Underground Sea from collector's edition is first of all unavailable, and second, even if you want to buy it, you will have to pay quite a high price. But then again, it only doubled. It only about doubled in price from that. So yeah, it is still a good investment. Let's look at some of the smaller cards. So for instance, collector's edition. Yeah, I always like to talk about collector's edition. So Fungasaur from collector's edition. Do we see any increase here? And this is collector's edition, the usual one, $1 to $3. That's not too amazing, but still. What about Fallen Empires cards? Isle of Pile, I believe, is one of the more or less popular cards in Fallen Empires, but I'm not entirely sure. Okay, currently unavailable, but in general, they didn't go up that much. As you can see here, I did buy a little bit, just a tiny bit of Fallen Empires, but I knew that I was mainly going to play Swedish, and I actually didn't want to mix my old school 93-94 Swedish cards. They're not Swedish legal, I understand, but I'm talking about the Swedish banned and restricted list, and the cards from Fallen Empires, because they will not be available in many sub-formats. So Atlantic, by the way, was not a thing back then. It didn't exist. So we only had Swedish MTG, and most people played Swedish banned and restricted on the internet. This was my idea. I actually separated them in my binder, but I did get a couple of useful cards, such as Goblin Grenade. How much is a Goblin Grenade nowadays? I wonder. And the Goblin Grenade is nothing. It's literally nothing. So you see, I actually paid more for a Goblin Grenade, much more. I lost 70% of money on that. Look, that's funny. Okay, let's not talk about these tiny, not expensive cards. Yeah. Okay, one more order that I placed with the Star City Games. Again, it was one more by listing from me. Copy Artifact. We're not talking about how quality artifacts skyrocketed, how powerful it is, how expensive it is, how unbelievably big it is, but there was already the beginning of this process. People already knew that Copy Artifact is very good, and as a card that is not available after revised, it definitely went up. But it was already $15, which was unheard of for a revised rare. So let's look at some more expensive cards. For instance, Suchi. Okay, so Suchi, which I paid $20 for a played copy, of course was a good deal. We're looking at 3 times increase, or maybe even more. On the other hand, Oubliette, which was reprinted, as you know, still retained its old school premium. It's not just old school, it's Arabian Nights, come on, it is the very first set, the very first expansion, I mean. However, it is a common, which is very important to note. So in a bad condition, it would be a little bit more expensive, but still not that much expensive. And yeah, again, couple stone throwing devils. Yeah, we're looking at an amazing return on investment here. But yeah, I'm not talking about these banned cards and such. I also played 95, so that is why I had some cards from Ice Age, as you can see. Had Necropotence, Dark Banishing, and I somehow wanted to play a lot of different formats at the same time. Now I'm actually not doing that anymore, sadly, because I don't have time for tournaments. And look, I got 2 of the Falconeers, which was unusual for me because I would typically get only 1 of the Legends. And Exorcist, did he go up? I believe he did, but maybe not that much. The original English Exorcist, not the Italian copy. Okay, yeah, he did go up. Okay, now Card Kingdom itself. Always very convenient to look at this. Yeah, okay, this is the most feel-good part probably, because here we're looking at the power cards. The very first power I bought was from ABU Games, and we're going to look at ABU Games orders a little bit later. But with Card Kingdom, I bought Mox Pearl. Look, Collector's Edition, International actually, Collector's Edition, ICE for 251. Sapphire, 251 also. So, you know, there was such a thing, and I already could feel it, and I went for the International Collector's Edition ICE as soon as I learned that it is more scarce, that it is more difficult to acquire. I could feel that there was some kind of market inefficiency, because if a card is more scarce, then there should be a premium on it. So even today when we Google some cards, we see that sometimes there is no difference between Collector's Edition and International Edition. Nowadays, of course, International Edition will be more expensive. So here, but in this particular case, I believe that the Sapphire is by definition more expensive than the Pearl. So this is why CE Sapphire, in the same condition as the Pearl, would have the same price, right? I believe this is the case. And Time Walk 174. That is cheap. Trust me, that is cheap. An even more interesting thing, if we remember a recent spike of Time Twister, look, 224. But you know, I placed these orders, so we're talking about late 2017, very late 2017 already. So again, people started buying a lot of stuff. You know, it was right before the cryptocurrency boom, I believe. Probably in November, so maybe even December. So this already started, but it was still not more expensive. You know, it was not still as expensive as it deserved to be. So yeah, Time Twister. What can we have a Time Twister for nowadays? Well, first of all, you cannot have it from this site. Obviously, it is bought out. There is absolutely no way you can buy a copy, and you know, even for this money, no way you will be able to buy a copy. They just don't update it because I guess they keep it for the purpose of having some correlation between the sale price and the buy list, but then again, it's definitely not going to happen. Okay, some more Card Kingdom, some more jank actually. Well, such as Plateau, but in all seriousness, we've got some Safe Haven cards, Spectral Cloak, and Transmutation. So yes, just a tiny order. I don't know actually why I went for such a okay. Yeah, it's not that small. Nowadays I wouldn't actually do that, because currently the barrier so to say tax barrier for orders here in Russia is $200. So if I have an order over $200, not only will I have to pay the tax, but the most terrible thing is that I will have to go through a lot of paperwork with this, and even worse, that sometimes I will have to go to the very central customs office and maybe deal with a broker if I cannot do that. So that's a nightmare. I'm not doing this anymore, and this is also the reason why I prefer not to buy expensive cards from stores. And well, I don't do this anymore, just in general. Okay, what have we got here? I believe, yeah, one of these when I just wanted to get some more fun cards, stuff like that. Let's look at the price dynamic of Chronicles again. Arena of the Ancients, Chronicles, a little bit more expensive, but nothing truly impressive. Copper Tablet. Copper Tablet, I believe, doesn't show a really strong dynamic. It was already quite expensive. Yeah, I'm right, actually. I'm right, so 12, that's very close. That's very close to what we had. And Elder Landworm, Goblin Wizard. Now, that is a guy that spiked, I believe. Must be about 50 today. Yeah, that's correct, 50. Oh wow, what is that? Goblin, that's blasphemy. Why do you call a card which has the unique name of Goblin Wizard and this Goblin Wizard token the same name? That's not right. That's not right at all. You know, it's like having a card, a creature that is named Saproling, and Saproling token. Wow, that's not cool. Alright, Core Set 2021. Do you think we have forgotten the mighty Goblin Wizard? We have not. Okay, let's look at a random card, which I believe was actually reprinted. Princess Lucrezia, or how you pronounce it. Oh, okay, it was not actually reprinted, was it? That's interesting, because it is not a reserved list card, but it wasn't reprinted either. So it's one of those uncommon legends, not rare legends. Will we see this as the next buyout? Will we see this price go up? I'm actually really curious about it. Maybe not, maybe not. But this itself is very interesting, because I believe this is a pseudo-reserved list card, right? The illustration is beautiful. You've got this Maleficenta vibes from the Disney castle, and this evil queen, evil sorceress. Even though she's called princess, she doesn't look like a princess to me. But no, I'm kidding. Of course, the art is amazing here. So yeah, that's interesting. This is actually one of the few cards that was an uncommon legend, but was not reprinted in Chronicles or some subsequent sets. Tiger, yeah. So about these, I think we have talked actually too much. So that's fine. Let's not talk about the duels. You know how it works. Some stable increase, because everybody knew that duels are great. Tuknir Deathlock. You know how I love this card. I have talked about it several times in different decks that I have used, and yeah, that's just a beautiful card. Notice that it says green and red, right? Because today we will have red and green, right? We've got WUBRG in terms of colors. I always found it interesting. Okay, so what else have we got? Any interesting cards on the expensive side? Copper Tablet, Collector's Edition. Yeah, about Copper Tablet we have already said something. Oh yes, I was completing my Power 9 Mox Emerald 251, and you see this order was placed just a little bit later than the previous one, and you know, things started getting a little bit more expensive with the time, but yeah, it was still pretty much the same. Raging River, I'm curious about this. What would Raging River fetch nowadays? I actually ordered one copy not so long ago, and looking at some small increase. By the way, it's very funny if you haven't heard about that, that you can have 2 raging rivers, and you will have another river on the bank of one of this river and 1 extra river on the second bank of this river, and inside of this you will also have 2 banks. It's absolute nightmare. It shouldn't exist. It should be a world enchantment. But of course, just like with Ali from Cairo, for instance, who is supposed to be a legend, but he was printed before legends were introduced, this one is supposed to be a world enchantment, but there were no world enchantments in alpha, as you understand. So there you have it. A very, very interesting card. Okay, now this is the most recent orders that I've got from 2020. In spring, when everything started, I saw the Russian currency collapse, and I said to myself, okay, so probably this might be one of those times that Rudy was talking about, where, you know, everything is going down in terms of economy, and this is where alternative investments, collectibles, can actually prosper. So I bought some of the cards that I wanted to have for a long time, and I was not wrong. I was not wrong. And Ring of Maruf, for instance, just less than a year ago, can be had, as you can see, for 35, and today it can be had for 58. Okay, Bayou collector's edition, an excellent copy. Not the Bayou Dragonfly, we want just the Bayou. And you see, again, we're looking at doubling the money here. Some fun cards such as Zombie Master, the 3rd edition, the hated and underappreciated for a very long time revised. I'm sorry, that's actually very embarrassing. Oh no, okay, it's not. Okay, no, it's still the excellent copy. So 4, yeah, we had a tiny increase. We still win. Revised fans. Force Field, one of those interestingly iconic cards that nobody actually plays, or very few people in the old school community. And look, tripling the money. So it's definitely good that I listen to the advice of people who say that you know, when panic starts, you shouldn't panic sell, but you should buy, and buy rationally. I didn't buy rationally, actually. I just said, okay, so these are the cards I wanted for a long time, and the savings that I had, my modest savings, were better off in cardboard rather than in the currency that was falling down very, very quickly. And you know, if you think that you had it bad, for instance, if you are in Europe or in the United States, we had it much worse, trust me, with the exchange rates and such. So, okay, yeah, one more thing I wanted to talk about. So again, you see, natural selection did not actually move that much from 2017, where I got this card, to 2020. We don't see actually a big increase. This card was still difficult to find, and it didn't demonstrate a huge growth. However, what did demonstrate a huge growth is Transmute Artifact. I'm very happy I bought this card. You still cannot find it in stores, and yeah, we saw a great increase. The same is true of some other cards that I got purely for my collection. Island of Wak Wak, but then again, it's interesting that some of them increased dramatically, some of them not that much, but they of course still saw some increase. So Island of Wak Wak, for instance, what are we looking at? About 120% increase, and Singing Tree actually almost tripled, so that's quite impressive. Okay, about those let's not talk again. And this one is the order that I placed, I believe, when was it? In summer 2020. So this was when some of these things started to gather pace, very slowly but still. And I think that, yeah, okay, so there was no increase on the Ifrit, There probably was, however. So you see how interesting it is. If Bifefrit did not move, Kabelgul more than 50% increase. Why? Very difficult to explain, and actually no rational way to explain, especially because if Bifefrit is considered a rare, Kabelgul is considered an uncommon. Of course, I know it's wrong. You've got the different. You don't really have a rare in Arabian Nights. You've got this U1, 2, 3. I'm not very good at remembering what the real rarity is, depending on the number of repetitions per sheet these have. But anyway, you get the idea. So these things are impossible to predict, really. One more thing from Card Kingdom. Okay, this is the most recent one. You may have seen my video where I drool over Ali from Cairo because it was such an iconic piece of card board for me as a child, as for many people, I believe. But Ali from Cairo, painful to look at. Look, he actually went down. But how? It's so interesting. So 3 cards, all are reserved list rares from Arabian Nights, all bought at the same time. This is probably the most interesting case study of them all. If Bifefrit didn't budge an inch, stayed absolutely the same. Kabelgul, more than 50% increase. Ali from Cairo, a card everybody knows and a truly iconic one, went down, not much, it's about 10%, right? But still he did go down. Really, really impressive, I believe. Next, ABU games. Some of the older orders, I believe. Yeah, this is one of the older orders. I bought Gravity Sphere for just $4.99. As you can see, I used ABU Games as a complimentary website, which was an addition to Card Kingdom, where I got my mainly English cards, and in ABU Games I got foreign cards. So this is how it worked. So yeah, it's pointless to compare that with Card Kingdom. So let's just go to ABU Games in case we want to check something out. Yeah, all right. So let's use the example of Gravity Sphere. When was it? It was in. Oh, okay, it's a new one. It's a new one. I did have some previous order. I had an old order with. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, okay, this is English. If we look at the Italian one, yeah, it's still much more expensive, 4 times as much. And again, we're talking about spring 2020. So what I wanted to say is that I do not have a receipt for, or do I? Wait. Yeah, I do. Okay, that's fine. That's good. I was wrong. They're just not in the same order. Okay, yeah, so there isn't much, I believe, sense to talk about this, except for the most iconic card of Legends, which is Wood Elemental, Italian. How much are you, big guy? The same. Nobody loves Wood Elemental. People love to hate on him, but of course for a good reason. Our Field of Dreams. Let's look at Field of Dreams. Here, I believe we saw a big increase. Okay, for some reason the Italian copy is not available, like, at all. But trust me, it's also much more than that nowadays, much more than that. What about a useless card, but iconic and goofy? Divine Intervention. Can we see an Italian copy? Yeah, again, almost doubled. So if you know, if you look at this, you think that, yeah, cards go up. Cards do go up. And yes, they do. Okay. Oops. Where is the... Okay, let's... Okay, sorry for the jump cut. but chances are I'm all alone here and you're not actually watching this video, and I totally understand you. But in case you're watching, thank you. So yeah, the couple last orders that I had, and I actually got them first again during this fateful moment when I decided to go old school, and I buy listed a lot of my cards. So I buy listed, say, Lion's Eye Diamond that I had from my Goblin Charbelcher deck, deck that people hated, but I had this, and I buy listed it for about 150. I was very happy about it. I was really happy about it, but of course today it would be much more expensive. But still, let's look here. What have we got? Beta invisibility. Okay, now that is interesting because this is beta. Now you know that in beta and even more so in alpha, there are no bad cards, right? We just say so. Of course, invisibility is one of the least popular cards. It's one of the cheapest cards that can still be had in beta for a negligible amount of money. But still, we're looking at 5%, 5 times increase. Ashnod's Altar, pretty much the same, I believe. Look, Elves of the Deep Shadow have always been very expensive, and this is the most beautiful face in old school Magic. This is my personal opinion, of course. Your tastes may differ, but it is an absolute beauty of a card, and I don't know how he does it, how Jesper Murphys is able to draw such a beautiful image. It's priceless. It's absolutely amazing. I absolutely love this card, and I know that a lot of people do. So this was always expensive for an uncommon from the dark. I'm talking about the dark once again, not even Legends. I'm talking about the dark, which has a high print run. It is not a popular set. It is the least expensive set of the original expansions of old school, but still, yeah. And I just said to her, I must have this card. I love it. Unlimited Glasses of Versa. Interesting that I went for the unlimited copy. You know, it's not a thing that I usually did. As you saw, I very often went for revised, but yeah, I already had some, you know, pimp trends there, so to say. And yeah, the more interesting thing here is, you know, that ABU games offer what we call eggshell picture items, where you can have the exact scan of the card. So for instance, Mirror Universe, Italian Legends. Italian? No. But okay, even if you cannot get the English copy, I understand that the Italian copy will also be quite expensive. Jihad, actually, it's very interesting. I'm not talking about the history of bannings and such. What I'm talking about is that, again, back then, when I was buying these, I didn't know they would be banned. I didn't see any really controversial things about it. It's just a card for me. I just wanted to play it. I didn't think about the cultural things there at all. But the thing is with this card is that I bought a damaged copy. Here it said poor, but it's much worse than poor, trust me. It is inked not only on the border, it is inked on the frame. There is a little ink on the frame, which actually looks like a kind of a crack in the frame. So when I first looked at it, I didn't understand that it was the case. It was a very strange copy. I still have it, and yeah, I believe this would be a good deal for this card nowadays. It did spike to about $500 a little bit later, and it was still a sanctioned card. So yeah, an interesting story with this card. Suchis, yeah, we talked about Suchis already. Arabian Nights Flying Man was still very cheap, and look, okay, this is my first piece of power. This is an amazing feeling, and for me personally, Ancestral Recall, I have said this many times and I will say this again. Ancestral Recall is the most important piece of power. I know that Black Lotus is the most iconic one, it's the one that everybody wants, but Ancestral Recall, you want it on turn 1, you want it on the very last turn. And it's not that Ancestral Recall is a good card to put into your blue deck, it's actually the reason why people splash blue into their deck. Ancestral Recall first and foremost. Only then Time Walk, and maybe then Time Twister, but not always the case. But Ancestral Recall, I loved everything about this card, and I still do. You know, it's like winning a lottery, drawing this card or seeing it in your starting hand. So that's why I bought it. That's why it was the first card that I bought from Power. And you see, it was still, when it was the cheapest, what date are we talking about? The 21st of September, actually. It's not even in summer, so this was actually a bit later than I started this whole thing. Yeah, but it was still before the cryptocurrency boom of 2017. Now, maybe we should also look at Gauntlet of Might. It was already very expensive. I call it the Ellie from Cairo case because it's a card that everybody knew was good, and some people, just like Forcefield again, were getting it just because of nostalgia and this card being iconic and very rare. But yeah, actually BU Games is not the best site to go for such expensive cards. You can typically find them for much less than that. But you see, we're still talking about more than triple growth. And Avoid Fate, Cobalt. Okay, so now the most expensive Cobalt, of course, is the... Where is he? Cobalt Overlord. Yeah, that's right, because he's rare, actually. It gives you Cobalt creatures first strike. And he's much more expensive today, I believe. Wow, look at the price difference. I just believe that they didn't update it. That's a very unusual one. Played 20, near mint 93? Okay, okay. No, I'm sure that you just didn't update your Played, because it's impossible for an Italian Played to be more expensive than this. If they don't have it in stock, then why bother, right? So Played, yeah. Doubled, but still was always expensive. And yes, of course, it's very pleasing to look at Wheel of Fortune, saying, okay, how did it spike? Oh wow, there was a Wheel of Fortune Judge foil. I actually knew that, but I forgot. Okay, yes, there's actually one copy. Interesting. You know, I don't think that Summer Magic copy should be that low. If you can have a revised copy for actually quite a lot of money. Do we have any foreign white bordered right now? No. Okay. And Trolling Toad has this beautiful series of artist altered and signed cards. Let me show you Ring of Maruf, an altar by Dan Fraser himself that I really wanted to have but didn't buy, and I'm still bashing myself for it because I bought the usual copy for the amount of money that you will have for this, and look, now it's much more expensive, so I'm not touching this, unfortunately, but it's so beautiful. You know how organically this wind is woven into the picture. It's so beautiful. I'm really sad that I didn't get this one, but then again, I don't think that I'm going to play Ring of Maroon like at all. Maybe just try to squeeze it into my Tron deck or something like that. So here it is. Once again, thank you and congratulations on your patience, or maybe falling asleep if you stayed with me until the very end of this video. I'm very curious to know whether you managed to get some insights from this long-winded video, and what kinds of stories do you have. I'm sure that you have much more exciting stories than mine, than you know, buying Sarah's Sanctum, selling it for roughly the same next year, and then seeing that it increased 25%, 25 times, not percent. And I actually still believe that after all of this discussion, this would be the biggest increase percent-wise that we saw. Yeah, such a sad one. But anyway, overall, of course, I'm happy, and this kind of increase is the reason why I stopped buying more, and I'm definitely, you know, quitting this thing. But once again, thank you for watching. I really, once again, want to know your stories. Will definitely like to know about that, and I'm sure you even have much more bitter stories than mine. I talked to some people who had the power cards and sold them in, I don't know, the 90s for almost nothing. Or on the other hand, people who bought these cards for, I don't know, 10, 20, 50, I don't know how much, and actually kept them. Both of these are equally fascinating, I would say. Thank you for watching once again, and I will see you soon. Bye.